Hello everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is our live stream, and this is not the first but the second of our live stream, so we're really excited to be here today. We did a previous live stream on Monday, was that correct, guys?
Yes, Monday. I thought that went really well. What do you think, Mitchell?
I would agree. I think it was really informative. I think we had quite a lot of good input from the apprentices, and hopefully we'll be able to expand on that in today's session too.
Excellent.
So maybe this would be a good point just to do a little review about what we discussed on Monday. So sit tight.
A little bit about modern apprenticeships. Modern apprenticeships are the more known apprenticeship route. They've been around for quite a few years now, and they are the pathway when you think about a mechanic or a plumber traditionally would have done an apprenticeship. So a little bit more information about a modern apprenticeship.
What are foundation apprenticeships? Foundation apprenticeships have been developed by Skills Development Scotland with industry to provide school pupils with industry insight and experience whilst gaining a work-based learning qualification by introducing them to the world of work earlier.
Hello there, I'm Mary Hindmarsh. I mentioned earlier I was a vocational training officer for Glasgow City Council. So what does that mean in practice? So as an assessor, I have a group of modern apprentices that I work with. So I guide and I assess them through their vocational qualification. I support them in the workplace and I review their progress with their workplace supervisor. For an example, one of my apprentices...
Great, thank you very much. Just a reminder as well to everybody, on Wednesday at 2 o'clock, we will have deaf role models and have a good discussion about their experiences, their journey, how they achieved their apprenticeship, any barriers they may have had and how they solved and got through those. So I look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much.
Wow. So really interesting, and it's good for us to have a recap of what we discussed on Monday.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to find out more about Scottish apprenticeships, then please watch that video on Monday to find out some more from Monday.
And in addition, we have managed to secure some role models to talk about their journey. So this should be interesting to observe. Please remember that we are inviting comments from anybody watching. We'll have a kind of wider group discussion towards the end of today's session. But before that, we'll have a little bit of an opportunity to speak to them on an individual basis about their journey and the apprenticeship programs. So, first of all, without further ado, let's do our first introduction. Hi.
Hello, my name's Rebecca O'Rourke.
Okay, so maybe if you want to just begin with an introduction, and we'll take it from there.
Hello, my name's Rebecca O'Rourke, and I am a past apprenticeship. I've done a modern apprenticeship in early education and childcare, completing a social services, children and young people qualification at SCQF level 7.
Thank you.
I completed my modern apprenticeship with North Lanarkshire Council.
Great, fantastic. So if what we can do is maybe bring in some other role models. So let's open the door and bring them in. Hello. Hi. So maybe you can tell us who you are. Hi, everybody. My name is Oliver Kerr. My job title is manufacturing engineer. I have completed my modern apprenticeship, completed that a couple of years ago now. Thanks very much, Oliver. And maybe what we'll do is bring in our final guest.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Can't hear you. Yeah, we couldn't hear you there.
My name's Elaine. I work for Openreach. I completed a 1-year trainee apprenticeship with the Openreach within the workplace.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us on our live stream today. And I did say our final guest, but this is now our final guest. Let's see who this is. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. It's nice to be with you. My name is Sam Spiels. I did my apprenticeship program as a wood technician in manufacturing. So it's nice to be with you all. So it's great to see everybody here. We have a variety of deaf role models here, and I think maybe what we'll do is begin with Rebecca, shall we? What we'll do is hopefully at some points we will go through each of the role models, and towards the end we'll maybe have a group discussion. So we are inviting comments from anybody watching us live stream, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to include some of those questions in today's session. Okay, so see you guys later. Excellent. Okay, Rebecca. So maybe we'll begin with a few questions. Would you like to give us just your full title, your job role, and your employer's name?
Hello, my job title is an early learning and childcare key worker. And I work for North Lanarkshire Council.
Rebecca, when did you start your apprenticeship?
I started my apprenticeship in October 2018 and finished it in October 2019. So it was a 1-year apprenticeship.
And can you tell me a little bit about what your day-to-day was like when you were an apprentice?
I worked in the nursery class 4 days a week. So on those 4 days, I was responsible for the day-to-day running of the nursery. So setting up activities for the children, helping them in their play, helping observe and assess their learning, and work alongside my colleagues to plan activities throughout the day.
That sounds
And then
really good.
on the other day, the Thursday, I went to college to do the training.
Okay. And what college did you go to?
I went to West College, Scotland.
Excellent.
Can I ask, how did you begin your apprenticeship when you went to college and you met lots of other people there? What was the first thing? How did you originally get involved in the apprenticeship? What was the process? What got you into that apprenticeship scheme in the first place?
Well, when I was in my final year of school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So then I seen a job advert for a modern apprentice with North Lanarkshire Council. So I decided to apply for it and I was successful. So then I was offered a place in a nursery class. So first of all, we started going to do the work in the nursery class for around 2 months. And then we started going to the college 1 day a week where we learned like the background knowledge of childcare and being an early learning childcare key worker. So all this theory that you needed to know.
And how did you feel when you started your apprenticeship?
When I started my apprenticeship, I was a little bit nervous, but I was also excited at the same time. So I was nervous, like how it was going to be with the background noise, because obviously, as you expect in a nursery class, it's really noisy. But I actually coped quite well.
Wow, that's fantastic. And how did you overcome any barriers that you faced? Did you get access to additional support, for instance, access to work or during your apprenticeship program?
No, I didn't need any support during my apprenticeship programme, so I didn't use access to work or anything. But my colleagues were really supportive and they were able to help me with anything that I maybe needed a wee bit of guidance on or support.
Sounds fantastic.
And did you face any barriers, Rebecca, during your apprenticeship?
No.
No? Brilliant.
There was no barriers at all, so it was a pretty much a smooth apprenticeship. It ran smoothly, yeah? Fantastic. Look at you.
And what advice would you give somebody if they're watching today and they're thinking about doing an apprenticeship, and particularly one in childcare?
My advice I would give them would be to just go for it, be yourself in the job, and if you do need support, to open up and ask your employer for it.
So, what are the next steps for you then? You've completed your apprenticeship programme. What does the future hold?
The future holds for me at the moment. I'm currently working full-time in a nursery class as an early learning and childcare key worker. So maybe in the future I would maybe like to go and do a degree, but I'm not quite sure at the moment. I think I just want to continue working and see what happens.
Sounds exciting. Sounds really exciting. And I think your experience of the apprenticeship programme is kind of inspirational for all of us. What we'll do now is bring in our next deaf role model, Oliver Kerr. And then towards the end, we'll bring in everybody. But in the meantime, thanks very much for talking about your journey on the apprenticeship programme.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank
that
you.
was really fantastic.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
Hello, Oliver. Hi guys. Oliver, would you like to tell us your name, your full name, your job title, and a little bit about the apprenticeship programme? So, I've obviously already told you my first name. My surname is Kerr. My job title is manufacturing engineer. To get to that title actually took a lot of work, and that started through the apprenticeship programme. So, I've been employed through the company Rolls-Royce, and they are an aero engine manufacturer world renowned. So I've completed my apprenticeship programme, actually was back in 2011, so it's quite a long time ago now. And that apprenticeship programme was 3 years in its duration. So I completed that journey from its beginning to its conclusion and worked on SVQs along the route. So a lot of that involved practical work. So that meant milling, turning, working on turning machines within the training centre. So there's a dedicated training centre that you attend for a year before you then work on the factory floor for a period of 2 years to complete your apprenticeship. And within that, you are exposed to a lot of different environments, which include inspection, administration, building, and I managed to work from a level SVQ2 onto my SVQ level 3. Also, that meant that I had to attend part-time college. So you were working in a factory, gaining the practical experience, and at the same time, I attended college to gain a HNC. And at the end of that, that's when I had completed my apprenticeship programme. I think just in terms of barriers, I think it's quite interesting because the support from the work was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. There was nothing I couldn't ask for. Now, they provided me with interpreting support and communication support, and also there was Outward Bound, which I had access to, and communication support also. They also provided deaf awareness training for staff, which meant that any barriers that might have been there were reduced and actually resolved before they became a barrier. It was fantastic.
Wow, that's excellent. You mentioned,
Yep, no, on you go.
sorry, you mentioned that you went to college. What college did you go to, and how often did you go to college?
So, College for me was what's called day release, and I attended Langside College in the south side of Glasgow. So what we did there was I did a HNC mechanical engineering as a day release student. Yeah, so Langside College. Can I ask, Oliver, during the apprenticeship programs, can you recall any positives or any negatives? I think the positives for me was what I learned, and also learning and working in conjunction. It wasn't just about the theoretical side of things, it was about the practical. So you could actually link those two aspects of your work together. So that for me was great because it meant I was working and studying. The benefit of that is that you have paid employment while you're gaining a qualification. So that's a definite positive. A negative, give me a little bit of time to think. I'm thinking and I can't really see any negatives. It was just a great experience overall. Thanks. That was really interesting, really informative. Marguerite?
Yeah, can I ask, how did you find out about the apprenticeship?
So, Rolls-Royce obviously are a famous company, and I'd always wanted to work in Rolls-Royce, and I know it can be quite difficult and challenging to get an opportunity. I did my homework and found that they were actually doing apprenticeship programs. I applied, was invited along for an interview, and was lucky. Yeah. So I think it's about pursuing your dreams, looking to see what's out there. But the apprenticeship for me was definitely something worthwhile. I have one final question then. So, because we've got other questions for the other role models, once you got in, or was it easy to get in? I mean, for instance, was there an assessment process? What happened? Well, first of all, I applied. I was told that I'd been invited for an interview, so I'd got through to the next stage of the interview process, and that was an informal discussion with one of the managers at Rolls-Royce. I then was successful in that, and then they invited me along to the Rolls-Royce training centre. So that involves an English and maths exam. I had already prepared them to say, actually, I'm profoundly deaf and that there might be some barriers on me, but they gave me reassurance that that part of the process would be very accessible for me. I spoke to some of the managers there informally, and it wasn't something that I felt was a process which was easy to achieve. But I think with the support and understanding of the Rolls-Royce staff, it was definitely worthwhile me pursuing. Mitch, I think it's great that you're able to relay to us your story, your journey of the apprenticeship programme. It sounds absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Oliver.
Really great, thank you.
Okay, and our next guest. So, for those people who are live streaming, please do remember to add your comments and any questions. And so, hopefully, we'll have a group discussion towards the end where we can then answer your comments and questions. Hello. Hello. So, maybe for our next guest, maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about your name, your role, and a little bit about your title and your job role.
My name's Elaine, and I was a trainee engineer for Openreach. I've completed my apprenticeship about a year and a half ago, and now I'm working as a network engineer, customer facing. So I'm facing customers every day, fixing their phone lines, their broadband, and giving them the best service we can.
Wow.
So, Elaine, you mentioned that you finished your apprenticeship now. How long was your apprenticeship?
My apprenticeship was 1 year, so we basically implemented working. It was quite a special kind of apprenticeship as well, because basically what happened was Openreach and Skills Development Scotland worked together to build this apprenticeship for Openreach workers, and basically when we what we did in the workplace and stuff like that, we implemented it into the actual apprenticeship. So it was kind of like tailored for the open reach engineers. So I really enjoyed it. It was quite good to put a practical sense into the academical side of it.
So, how did you get involved in the apprenticeship programme in the first place? What was it that drew your attention? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Say that again, sorry. Sorry.
How did you first get involved in the apprenticeship programme? What was it that drew you towards the apprenticeship programme in the first place?
So basically I enjoy engineering as a whole. So when I found out about it through a friend who was actually doing the apprenticeship himself, it just kind of, I was really interested in finding out about it. So I read more into it and definitely sounded right up my street, working out and about, not in an office all day, doing something different every day. So it was perfect for me.
And how did you feel when you started your apprenticeship? Were you worried about anything?
I was nervous because when we first come into Open Reach, we all go down to like a training centre in England, but it's not just you and a few others. There's lots of apprentices coming on at the same time. So when I first initially went into that room, there must have been about 100 new apprentices from all around the UK. So it was a bit of a shock to the system then, but it was fine because we all got split into groups. And I trained in Livingston, so once I got put into my group, my nerves settled, and I was really started looking forward to getting going.
Okay, so can I ask you about any barriers that you may have encountered in your journey? You said that there was over 100 apprentices there, so that seems like quite a large group to me. So were there any barriers during your apprenticeship programme?
There was a few, just noisy in general, but I kind of sat myself near the front to speak to folk. But at the same time, when I first come in, I had to go through the process of the occupational health services as well. But that wasn't a negative thing, it was actually a positive thing because it worked out better for me. It was just to put me through to see how they can improve the experience for me personally. It's kind of like a risk assessment as a whole, but at the same time, I got the benefit of knowing that I could speak to someone if I needed some equipment to help me. So I'm currently working on that just now to get a Compilot too, so I could speak to people on the phone through this device.
Brilliant. Do you have any advice for anybody that might be thinking about doing an apprenticeship or in particular engineering apprenticeship?
If they find something that they enjoy and they think they would enjoy, definitely go for it. It's probably the best decision I made doing it through this way. I mean, some people can't sit down in universities and stuff like that. It wasn't going to suit me anyway. So working in an apprenticeship was the best way forward for me anyway.
Wow, that's a really positive story there about your journey and your experience. And I think just being in a crowd of 100 other apprentices sounds, wow, I am very impressed. So I think it's a good opportunity for others to think about, looking at role models and deaf role models. And as it's been highlighted by others, it means you can learn and earn at the same time, which is positive, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we'll do now is bring in our next guest, Sam, who could talk about his experience on the apprenticeship pathway, and then we'll have a final group discussion. So please remember to add your comments. We'll be happy to discuss your comments when we bring the group back together.
Thank you, Elaine. That was great.
Thank you. See you shortly. Hello. Could you for the benefit of everybody, tell us your name, your job title. Hi there, everybody. My name is Sam Spiels, and I work for an organisation called Rero Laminates, Rero Manufacturing. Yes. So I've just completed my 4-year apprenticeship programme, just very recently. I started working in the programme in 2016 and just finished in 2020 of September 2020. Yes, it's been great. It's been fantastic.
And how did you find out about your apprenticeship, Sam?
So at the time before I was apprenticeship, I was in Forth Valley College based in Falkirk. And I was doing a furniture HNC. And I wanted to expand on that. I was very keen to find some line of work. My lecturer had said to me about the apprenticeship programme and had said that it'd actually be like a continuation of what you're already doing. So I applied for the apprenticeship programme, and 4 years later, here I am. It's great because I like working in this line of industry and I've enjoyed it thoroughly. So, you're working with wood, you're working with furniture. So could you maybe expand on a little bit about some of the areas you work in? So at the moment, for the 4 years that I've been working within Rero, we do like kitchen furniture, toilet furniture. There's a whole variety of different furnitures that we work with.
And are you fitting that furniture or are you making it?
So for the kitchens and toilet sides, we have fitters for that. Yep. So what we do is I'll work on, for instance, the edging for kitchen worktops and toilet worktops and yeah, things like that. That's kind of what I'm doing at the moment. So in terms of your journey within the apprenticeship programme, were you able to access support in terms of communication support? Yes, I did actually access the interpreters for meetings and also for training as well. So, and then, yeah, just there was some communication support put in place for us so that I could advance myself through the apprenticeship programme. And what about any barriers? Did you encounter any barriers? To be honest, probably very few. Very few. So for those individuals who use English, then what I would need to do is use a pen and paper to communicate. So it's just about drawing on communication tactics and strategies. But overall, very few barriers.
Can you remember, Sam, how you got access to the interpreters? Was it through Access to Work? Can you remember?
So when I was at college, as part of the HNC furniture class college, you would have access to the interpreters from the college. So that was usually kind of pretty seamless, that whole process of securing and communication support.
Okay.
So that you had communication support in the workplace too. Yes, I can get access to communication support for meetings, but the college is the institution that provides the communication support whenever I was at the college for learning. Sam, do you have any advice that you would like to give to anybody who might be considering approaching or applying to an apprenticeship programme? Yeah, I think it's definitely worthwhile because it means that you can educate yourself, get a qualification, and earn at the same time. So I think it's definitely been something I would consider worthwhile, and I would encourage others to consider it too.
It's brilliant.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks very much for your time and telling us a little bit about your journey and your experience working within Rero. And I think hopefully it demonstrates to others that you can earn and learn at the same time. So I think what we'll do now is we'll invite our previous guests back and we'll have a kind of wider discussion about the apprenticeship programme. While that is happening, I'll have a quick look to see whether there's any comments online. We do welcome them, so please do contribute. See you shortly. Hello, we're all back. We have the whole team here. Excellent. It's good to see you all. I'm just looking at some of the comments online. A question from Liv Preston for Rebecca. What is your favourite part of being a childcare worker and why?
My favourite part about being a childcare worker is that every day in the workplace it's a different day. So there's something different happening each day. So it allows me to learn new experiences and work with lots of different children every day.
Excellent. Thank you. And next question. This is from Eilish Barry. If there's anyone wanting to do an apprenticeship but they don't have an interest, what can they do?
I'll answer that one. There is something called the Employability Fund. The Employability Fund is like a pre-employment program where you can get employment skills and some work experience. So if you are interested in the Employability Fund, then you can speak to either a Skills Development Scotland Careers Advisor or the local job centre. So that could be an option. If you're still at school, really do consider a foundation apprenticeship. I know you mentioned if you're not interested in an apprenticeship, but a foundation apprenticeship is like a try before you buy option because you're still at school. So for 1 or 2 years while you're at school, you can get some industry experience and work with an employer. And then you can really find out if it is something that you would like to pursue further after school. Also, other options are things just like a job. So an apprenticeship is a job because you are getting paid. It just means that you're working towards a qualification as well. But if you're not interested in that part, then of course just look at employment, or another option is just full-time education where you don't have the work experience. But the idea behind the apprenticeship is it combines all of these things so that you are getting the work experience, the wage and the qualification at the same time. But you can separate that out and just do college or a job if you're not interested in combining the two.
Thanks. Our next question. This one is for Oliver, and it's from Loretta McCall. I find it really interesting about Rolls-Royce. So could you explain more about what it's like working in the Rolls-Royce Centre? Okay, so in Scotland, there's probably two paths. One is a full engineer working as an aero engineer, and the second one is working on specific areas. So there's two different kind of engineering routes. It depends on where your interest lies. In addition to that, for me as my role, what I need to do is need to strip the aero engines. So I need to strip them down to their modules, then clean the components, inspect those components, fix, then polish those components, then rebuild those components, and then reassemble the engine, which is then taken away for testing, and then it's refitted back onto the airplanes that you typically go on holiday on. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it is that I do in my role. So there's quite a lot of components, quite a lot of details to all of those kind of like tasks that you have to complete, isn't there? Yes, and I have to consider health and safety and the CAA requirements, FAA requirements. So there are so many formal, strict procedures that must be followed. So, Sam, and for the others here, do you have routines and policies within your workplace that have to be adhered to carefully? Sam? Yes. So when we provide furniture and equipment, we could be providing that to domestic or to wholesale. So we have quality standards that we have to make sure are adhered to, because obviously we don't want to be wasting the money of the company. So we do like stock rotations and checking stock and making sure that we are adhering to, strict guidelines also. And is that the same for yourself and BT OpenReach?
For Elaine.
For Elaine? Yeah, sorry, Elaine. Yep. Would that be the same for you, Elaine, then, could I ask? So Sam and Oliver spoke about the policies and the guidelines in place, quality control. So do you have similar structures in place in terms of your workplace too?
Sorry, say that again, please. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So Oliver and Sam spoke a little bit about the routines which are in place in their workplace. So is there anything similar in terms of your environment, your workplace, where you have to follow strict protocols that are relevant for your line of work?
Like, you meaning like kind of what equipment and stuff you brought in to make the experience better?
Yes.
Any policies? Right, okay. So basically, everything's done by the computer and like a phone. So we sign on in the morning, we get all our jobs and that in the morning, and we follow it. Basically, some are morning appointments, some are afternoon appointments. We have to try and make these targets and stuff like that. So mostly about target hitting, also experiences for the customer, giving them, getting them in service. That's what we're all about, giving telecommunication service to customers and broadband service as well.
Yep. Excellent. Yeah, I think it's interesting to find out a little bit about the protocols and the processes which are in place to support individuals in the workplace. Rebecca, do you have any processes in place in terms of childcare that have to be adhered to? For instance, safeguarding, are those things that are in place in your workplace too?
In my workplace, we have to follow the guidelines of the Scottish Social Services Council and Health and Social Care Standards, and also the nursery policy. And there's loads of other different policies that we have to adhere to ensure the safety of the children. And we also have to do regular risk assessments throughout the day.
I have a question for Elaine. So Elaine, in your day job, because you mentioned you visit customers, so do you do that alone, or do you do that with other people?
Yeah, so basically in this role we usually do it alone, but if you struggle, like if you're having a bad day, say that you're having a difficult job, you get assist, like you can get another engineer to come out and give you a hand. That we call that an assist, and they basically come out and give you a hand. And but usually the customer is your customer, but we're all there to do the same things to give the customer a good experience. So yeah, that's how we do it.
Brilliant.
Okay, we have another question. This one for everyone from Callie Slimmon. Question for everybody. Are they doing 24/7 work? 24/7 on their work?
No.
Sam? Nope. I don't. I only work 5 days a week, and it's 8 hours per day for me. So that's, and is that the same for everybody else? What about the working hours for the rest of the guys here today? Oliver? So I work 37 hours per week, and that's over 5 days. And that's as my role as an engineer. Before, when I worked as a fixer, you would work on a shift pattern. So that would be an early shift and then a back shift. So that was almost a 12-hour shift. As a builder, the guys work on kind of 3 shifts, so that line is open 24 hours a day, but I don't work on a line which is open 24 hours a day. Elaine, what about you? What are your shift patterns like?
Usually it's Monday to Friday, with the odd Saturday here and there. But when the weather's been bad, the network's taken an impact by the weather, we get like an overtime opportunity, so we work on our days off.
And Rebecca?
I work 37 hours per week, so I work 4 days a week, 8 in the morning till 6 at night.
I'll just add on to that you can be a part-time apprentice. So there are sometimes opportunities that are part-time. It will depend, again, what you're looking to do and what your employer is looking for. So you also would need to do enough hours to be able to complete the qualification element, but not all apprenticeships are full-time. I would say the majority are, but there are some options for part-time apprenticeships.
Well, it's really interesting to discover that there are options, and those options include full-time or part-time work. So possibly those who are thinking about applying for apprenticeship might actually understand now that they have more choices than they first originally thought. Okay, another question from their audience. Okay, this is Jodie Lee Snedden. A question for Rebecca. Where did she find all the information for childcare apprenticeships? I have been looking for one for a long time and unable to find one.
I found out about my apprenticeship on My Job Scotland website under my local council, so North Lanarkshire Council. But if you also go onto the Scottish Apprenticeship website, you'll be able to find out about all the different apprenticeships.
That's a good plug for me to come in and mention the website apprenticeships.scot, which is what Rebecca just mentioned there. I will find the BDA Facebook page and drop a link to that website at the end of this. It's the main website for promoting apprenticeships. It's not the only one. As Rebecca said, they're just regular job searching websites will offer apprenticeship opportunities, but we do have a main page, which is apprenticeships.scot. Another option, I think, that was mentioned already by Oliver is that he was particularly interested in an organisation. So he looked on their website and found out that they had apprenticeship opportunities. So if you know of a company that you're particularly interested in, then contact them directly.
Okay, so that's useful to know that you can directly contact an organisation in a similar way that Oliver did, and also in conjunction with maybe approaching SDS. So there's a variety of different routes that can be explored by those individuals keen on the apprenticeship programme. Okay, I think this question is for Elaine from Shasby. Which engineering does she talk about?
It's telecommunications engineering. So it's working with phone lines, broadband. Obviously now there's the fibre optic that's rolled out that's currently going on. I don't work in that side of things. I do the copper, but there are apprenticeships available for the fibre network side of things as well.
And in terms of the broadband, does that mean you're working on the roadside, digging up the cables and whatnot? Is that your side of things?
Working in whereabouts, sorry?
In terms of broadband, working on broadband, is it for the internet? Would that be correct?
Yeah. So I go into the digging, so lots of different teams in the OpenReach. So I do the service delivery. So what I do is try and get the actual service to customers. So it could be the house or an office or flat or anything like that. But we do diagnosis as well, so if we see there's not a line going there, like a cable or an actual pair, we then raise that fault, and then the appropriate team would deal with that.
Lovely, thanks, Elaine. I've got a clear idea now. That's helped me enormously. And this one's a follow-up question. What's the dream for you in the future, Elaine?
This would be
Yeah, for you, Elaine. Yep.
the future. Hopefully still build, giving people service for broadband. I really enjoy my job. I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. Hopefully we're told it's a job for life, and I have definitely seen that. Seeing people in different teams, been here for so many years, and they love their job. But I would love to, stay on and maybe develop my skills within the job, and who knows where it'll take me.
Can I ask Sam that question as well? Because Sam mentioned he just finished his apprenticeship very recently. So Sam, what is your kind of dreams now?
Okay, so I'm quite interested in working in CNC. So it's kind of like kitchen design work. And that's probably going to be the next step for me. That means I would have to go to night classes to do 3D CAD. I've completed my 2CAD training, and I'm keen to progress and go on and do my 3D CAD training. But as I said, that means attending evening classes at a local community college so that I can go on and obtain my qualification in that area. Mitch? So the 3D CAD, could you maybe tell us a little bit more about that then, Sam? So what that would enable me to do is do computer designs for kitchens and kitchen layouts. So it would help me to expand in my current repertoire or skills, and that's something I'm keen to progress in terms of developing myself for the future.
Brilliant.
Okay, our next question. This one might be for Oliver. This is from Loretta McCall. Rolls-Royce, the application or the process involved maths and English exams. How did you get on with that? Well, it's important to remember it's just generalised. I think what they're trying to assess is what your potential is. So for English and maths, you do need to have your qualifications in that and one science. So that could be physics or chemistry. So, but in terms of your English and maths, I think they're looking at it just in terms of a generality. They just want to see where you're at, is to give them a guideline and assess you. So don't be daunted or put off by that. I think for some people, the science qualification might be quite difficult, but yeah, it's important just to remember this is just general and it's just to get your foot in that door. Ailey Barrett, how did you guys deal with the COVID part of your job and study?
It's a very good question.
Who would like to go first? Sam?
Sam?
Yeah. So before COVID, we used to work alongside each other, and obviously we never had to consider any of this. But then for a period, we were furloughed, and then as I came back into work, I was working just like a reduced shift pattern for that gentle reintroduction into the workplace again. So did that present difficulties working on your own? Yes, I did find that occasionally could be quite stressful. You were your own, and there wasn't that kind of sense of camaraderie around you. So that could prove a challenge. Elaine, what about you?
So basically we worked through the pandemic because we provided essential service of phone lines and broadband. I mean, more people were working at home, and also people rely on their phone lines. The main reason is because in case you need to call emergency services or something like that. So basically what we did at first it was an uncertain time for everybody. So at first we tried to work from outside the houses, not enter on the premises, but still give them service. So we really did what we could, and we did really well during the pandemic. But afterwards, there was, measures put in place, safe measures put in place to keep everybody protected, basically.
Rebecca, do you want to tell us about your COVID experience in the workplace?
I had finished my apprenticeship before the COVID pandemic had happened, so I was then offered a temporary contract in a nursery class that started in February, and then we went into lockdown in March. So once we were in lockdown, I went to work in one of the local hub nurseries, looking after children of key workers and vulnerable children. So children whose parents were directly supporting the COVID-19 pandemic, I was looking after those children.
And I would like to ask Oliver, but Oliver's apprenticeship experience was a little bit before the COVID experience, wasn't it? But Oliver's saying, but I mean, I think COVID has had a really awful effect on everybody's work experience. I think just before COVID, everybody, I was working from home, and that was really difficult because we work with software which is licensed, and then everybody had to work remotely. So getting access to files was very difficult and enormously frustrating. So, and then constantly the computer systems would crash. So it's not, Elaine, I'm not getting at you and your broadband, okay? So this isn't directed at you. But yeah, so it was very challenging and it was a struggle for me. But I was speaking to other people in the team, they said that they were just as frustrated as I was. Now, what's happened is through the COVID experience, I've ended up losing my job just because the whole aero industry is actually taking a massive knock. But on the plus side, you have gained enormous experience, which should help you going forward in terms of securing new employment. Yes, you're absolutely right. I believe that I think my time in Rolls-Royce hasn't come to an end. I think that potentially with what's happened, I can use my skills and my experience not only within the aviation industry, but within maybe, for instance, the marine industry, biosectors. There's loads of different industries where I could actually take my skill set, and I think that all stems from the apprenticeship. Again, so it just demonstrates the value of the apprenticeship because it opens up so many doors, which is really good to hear. I think we have one more comment, one more question from Facebook. This is from Sarah. Can students go to an apprenticeship after completing a HND? As some students may feel they need more knowledge as their course study cannot provide practical classes due to COVID-19. Oliver? Yep. My question, my answer relates to my own experience in doing HNC electronics. Then I applied for the apprenticeship program subsequent to that course. So the course I then went on to do was HNC in manufacturing and engineering. Now, what that meant was that some of the coursework for my second HNC, I didn't need to complete because I already had completed that in my first HNC. Now, that meant I could actually accelerate myself through the program because I already had some of the modules and qualifications from a previously completed HNC. That decreased the time from start to end, so there can be benefits in that. Marguerite?
Yeah, just to add on to Oliver, his experience is correct for just generally speaking across the board, that you may actually be able to fast track yourself if you have already done some elements of that qualification. It's really the employer and training provider have a duty of care to make sure that you're not going to do something that repeats what you have already done. So it may be the case that they need to make sure that you actually have a value in doing your apprenticeship. So if there's still things that you haven't completed through your HND that you would complete through an apprenticeship, and some apprenticeships go up to the equivalent of a master's degree. So there'll be some apprenticeships, depending on what level it is, that even though you've done a HND, will take you to that next level. So it will depend what you're applying for. So if there may be an apprenticeship that's a lower level to what you've already done, and that training provider and employer will need to assess whether there's still value in you doing an apprenticeship in something similar. But as you mentioned, if you don't have the practical skills, then that may be the value in it for you. So essentially, there's no reason why you couldn't go on to do an apprenticeship after you've done a HND. But it'll be about being, having a conversation about what you've already done and making sure that that apprenticeship is suitable for you.
Lots of comments coming in now. This one's from Ian Campbell. Great stories from everybody, really interesting and well done to you all. Our next comment. This one is from Charlene Blakely. This is a great resource, so refreshing to see. Well done, everyone. This one's from Sarah Cook. Thank you, Oliver and SDS. This means a lot for me. Excellent. Lots of comments coming in. So I think, how does your group feel? I think it demonstrates showing everybody else your experience of the apprenticeship programme. How does that make you feel about your journey? I think what it does is, well, actually, this is the first time this group has met together. Is that correct? Oliver? Well, I know Sam and I know each other from before. We know each other quite well. Yes. So, maybe we could ask the audience how many of the audience are actually doing apprenticeship programs, or whether they would like to speak to you guys again in a capacity of talking about your apprenticeship program experience, just for you guys to give them tips and advice on how they can pursue the journey of embarking on apprenticeship program. How does that sound? Does that sound okay? Yeah? Yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to pass on the experience that I've gained. There's been so much that I've learned in my journey, and I think if I was able to reassure somebody else who's at the beginning of their journey, it would definitely be something worthwhile. Sam? Yeah, I think I would like to help others increase their confidence and show them that if I can do it, then equally they too can do it. Okay, one more comment here in terms of the theme of success. This one's from Jodie Lee. I've heard a lot of apprenticeships can give you a job if you are being successful with apprenticeships. Is this true? Jordan? Yes, this is very true. I think it depends also on the company. I was fortunate to work with Rolls-Royce, and 90% of apprenticeships are given full-time jobs. So even if you're not successful, you still have a qualification, which in of itself is something worth having, and that can open up doors for you in terms of securing future employment. Rebecca, so you completed your apprenticeship and you were successful in securing a job, a full-time job, is that correct?
Yeah, when I completed my apprenticeship, I had to apply for a job, but it was an internal process, so only those that had completed the same apprenticeship as me could apply, and luckily enough, all the candidates were successful.
I think everybody on this call is testament to securing employment after their apprenticeship. So I think that, you know, that shows that it is definitely true. And as Oliver said, over 90% will stay with the same employer once they've completed their apprenticeship, or it's round about that figure. I can't remember the exact figure. And many that don't stay with the exact same employer will just use their qualification to move on to another.
Okay, so I think this has been really informative, and it's been interesting hearing everybody's stories about their journey within the apprenticeship programme and the fact that everybody's managed to secure employment. So it's a great example, a great advert for the apprenticeship programme. Keeping an eye on the time, I can't believe that's an hour has passed already. We're still getting comments coming in, and please continue to add your comments and questions. So all that remains for me to say is thank you very much for offering your time, talking about your experience and your journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been great.